Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
You know, over the years, I have talked about a lot of the free talks I do. And one of the first things I kind of ran into as a young attorney was got this opportunity to go to the Ohio Business Brokers Association and stand in front of 30 business brokers. These are people who are helping people buy and sell businesses. And they wanted me to talk about the legal aspects of buying and selling businesses. Perfect audience, perfect everything. I was a little naive at the time, a little immature, if you will, because I'm like, oh man, I don't want to go write a speech and it's free and I need somebody to pay me money. But I will tell you that was probably the best lesson that I've ever received, because it instantaneously gave me credibility with all these people. And I was a business attorney, so these were people I needed to be in front of. Instant credibility, instant connection with these people. And once I realized, I kind of matured a little bit and woke up to the opportunities in front of me, I have never looked back from doing a free talk, getting on a podcast. I'm doing another one tomorrow. I did 2 yesterday. And it's amazing what comes from it. I can't say it's not, you can't point to it and say, okay, yeah, I did this and this came from it, but it's just like, right, you kind of build, you build this credibility in karma in the world, and it comes back to you when you need it most. And so right, I share that in prelude to introducing our guest today, Brian Hilliard. He's a popular speaker, coach, and author of the best-selling book, Network Like a Pro, graduate of Duke University, Go Blue Devils. But he specializes in showing speakers how to generate more revenue from their public speaking activities. And whether that's getting paid to speak or, like I was talking about, getting more paying clients from free talks. I mean, he's speaking my language. He's leveraged his experience, 20 years as a speaker, into an actionable framework that people can use right away. And he started this business in 2001, and he has written 8 books, published 300 plus podcast episodes, and he's spoken to 400 audiences in the areas of marketing, mindset, and leadership. Brian, welcome to the program.
Awesome. That was so nice. No, that was great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, I think, you and I were introduced. I'm trying to think who introduced us. We'll figure it out. Doesn't matter. We were introduced. We had a great conversation, and I said, I said you need to come on, and yeah, you're busy, yeah, and I'm busy, and we finally made it happen. It's early 2024. We're recording. This is probably coming out in. Was coming out in early March, but I'm glad to have you on because, again, you speak my language. It's, right, so many people decide they're going to do whatever, and it's right away, it's market. I'm the best, and you practice the fine art of sampling, of giving things away.
Yeah, I think, when you were talking about your story, because that's the first time I heard it, but when you were talking about your story, you're right. You can't point to, it's not speaking, networking, word of mouth. It's not a conversation, at least not in my experience, of 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, that's another word for that. That's science or math, yeah, or engineering. There's other words for that. This is not that. This comes into, I almost call it like Malcolm Baldrige talks about a tipping point, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the idea of once you're able to get to the term I like to use is threshold value. Yeah. And, when you put enough into it, like boiling water, when you get to a threshold value of, in this case, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils. So what happens is you go out, you speak, you network, you engage, and you come from a place of good faith. And when you do that, good things usually happen, even though you can't necessarily point to oh, well, when I went to Frank's group, I got this. When I went to John's group, I got that. But you can point to usually referrals, if you're playing your cards right, referrals and business coming as a result.
Yeah, I was asked a question this morning. I was at one of my networking, one of my AmSpirit Business Connections chapters, and I present quarterly to them. They, well, what's the secret to your success? And I said,
Right,
you know, it's just being stubborn. It's just kind of doing something and not, because so, and I joked about it, but it's like, you know what, I, I will. So what I told them is, I said, so many people embark on something and they'll take 3 steps and then they'll look around and wonder what's going to happen. And when
right,
nothing happens, they'll stop walking or stop whatever
right,
they're doing, speaking,
right,
whatever it
right,
is. And I said, you know what? I took 3 steps. I looked around and said, I just got to keep going, and I
right.
can't, and you don't know when it's going to come back. That organization I spoke of, the Ohio Business Brokers
Yeah,
Association, this
yeah,
goes back to 1995. I am still connected
right.
to that.
I'm sure you are.
And it's amazing. And my son's a commercial real estate appraiser, and I'm trying to get him
Okay,
involved. And it's
okay.
like, if that first speech might have a 50-year shelf life, right?
Right,
Because my son gets involved. I know it may be longer than that. I don't know.
right.
But now, how do you? I I get pushback on it. People are skeptical about the whole notion of, let me do something for free. I'm trying to make money.
Right,
How do you
right,
deal
right,
with that?
right. The skepticism of just the conceptual skepticism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I gotta tell you, I mean, here's the short answer, and then there's a little longer answer. The short answer is I don't talk to a lot of people who don't believe that the water is wet. Like
Okay.
the point that and that sounds maybe harsh. I'm a nice guy, but that
Yeah.
sounds maybe a little harsh. But like I don't, I learned early on in my business, for me, I don't spend time with people trying to convince them that the water's wet. Now you might not want to drink my water. You might want to even have soda. But I don't get into this conversation conceptually around the scientific benefits and basis of drinking some form of liquid at the end of each day or in the morning or something like that. So the short answer is I don't really even get involved. But let's say a little bit longer answer, which is, all right, what is it that I do to maybe show them a framework? What I try to do is I actually meet people where they're at, which is where I started. It wasn't working for me. I would speak, and it initially didn't work for me. And part of the problem was I was giving away too much. I was actually giving away too much. So there's giving away, there's not giving away, and then there's giving away too much. What
Yeah.
I was doing was giving away too much. And what was happening was I was overloading my would-be clients because they no longer felt like they needed me. So what I do, you talk about how do I engage with people and meet them where they're at. I say, listen, here's what's been happening. You haven't been getting clients. Oh yeah, because it doesn't. No. You haven't been getting clients. Right. All right. Let's think about it. It might be because you're giving away so much information that they don't know how to use you. You're like, okay. And I said, let me give you an alternative. And they're like, all right. I call it the 5x5 framework, where I take my presentation, break it down to 5 parts. Okay. And then I spend 5 minutes on each of those. Most free presentations is 30 minutes, 5x5. Inside of those 5 sections, I come up with 3 major points. Like major points is a big word. Key elements.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm going to be talking about, let's say I'm doing networking like a pro. Okay. So I might do as my 3 elements, the 12x12x12 rule, which is perception versus reality. I might talk about icebreaker questions, and I might talk about this concept called the collaboration call, which is a post one-on-one meeting that you do to generate more business and more referrals. Let's say those are my 3 points. Okay. I put that into those 5 sections. So the section 1 is talking about myself, the challenge, the issue, the problem, and why they should listen. Section 2 is where I bring up the first point.
Mm-hmm.
Section 3 is when I bring up the second point. Section 4, for the sake of discussion, let's say this is a physical presentation.
Yep.
Section 4, I do Q&A. Okay, I don't do Q&A at the end. I do Q&A. Section 5 is the third point with a call to action. Because for me, if I just gave myself carte blanche, a blank check, okay, I mean, you can't, that's like giving me unfettered access to, chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. Like if you put chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream in my freezer tonight, and like every night you filled it with 3,
Yep.
I would eat like 2 of them every night, those little pints. Okay.
I'm with
So
you. Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
so I don't do that. What I do is I have a timer, 5 minutes, section one, 5 minutes, section two, I give myself a little leeway, 5 minutes, section three, but that keeps me a little bit more on point. So that way I can make my points, tell my stories, and move on. And it gives you the best of both worlds. You're still giving away good, solid information. And what you'll find, you, me, we, your audience, what you'll find is that you will have more succinct points, which will make them better points, which will make people more likely to want to talk with you, which to your point is right what you just said. It's essentially, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When
Yep.
you have succinct, good points, people are going to want to talk to you, and that's how you get business. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. No, I love it. We should step back and have you share your story. I kind of jumped right into no, I
That's
think
fine.
I think it's powerful because a lot of times people see successful people and think, oh yeah, he rolled out of Duke and he was
I
doing
can
it.
tell you, I almost
Yeah.
didn't make it through Duke. My freshman year at Duke, yeah, I didn't. It was
Yeah.
like a firefight. In Duke, my freshman year, here's what they don't tell you about. Let's call it a high-end college, just for sake of discussion.
Oh, it
Okay.
is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What they don't tell you about what we're calling a high-end college is that you are graded on a curve. So what happens is when you're in high school, you get an 80 or more, 81, 82, you get a B.
Yeah.
You get an 85, you get a B, you get a 91, you get an A. That's not how it works at higher end places of institution.
Yeah.
Okay, at least the one I went to.
I get it. Yeah.
What happens is probably law school, the same thing. What happens is they've got 50 people in the class. First 5 get A's. That's it. Whether that cutoff is 92, 97, or 89. That's the first 5. Next 5 or whatever, next 10 get B's.
Yep.
Whatever the cutoff is, next 20 get C's, and everybody else didn't make the boat that day. Okay, they just did not make the train that day. So that I didn't know that. That was a huge, huge shock. But you know what it did? It helped me in my business because you talked about being stubborn. The idea is that you stick with it, right? You stick with it and you make adjustments. So I'm originally from the Northeast, Greenwich, Connecticut is where I grew up. Went to Duke, obviously that's in Durham, North Carolina. Economics major, marketing minor. Okay. Then I worked for a corporate for a few years, like everybody.
Yep.
And then at 29, I started my own business. Okay. And what I did was I would go out and speak. I was speaking for free, but I was speaking so much for free, giving away so much good information. I didn't have any let's just make sure. I didn't have any call to action. I didn't have any, I wasn't doing the 5x5. Like I was going out there kind of willy-nilly. Okay. And it wasn't working. So I wound up doing some coaching and things like that. And getting things organized. And then essentially what I did is I wound up writing several books. Networking Like a Pro was one of the first, obviously, with Dr. Meisner, and being able to go out there and be successful. And then I turned around and shared with people how I did it, either on a networking side, here's what you need to do to build word of mouth, on a speaking side, which is also what I do. How is it that you can actually generate more revenue from your deal? And what I tell people is, and I don't mind telling you or your audience, on 4 separate occasions, I've had $20 or less in my checking account. 4 separate times. I have had situations where I couldn't go to the gym because the gas was too much. It was almost across the. I actually joined the gym almost across the street because there were times when I couldn't make the drive. And so I had to I swear to God, I got a gym. This is back in Atlanta. That's where I started, in a gym where I could walk. It was like 1.5 miles. And I just considered it as a part of the workout. Gym was part of the thing. So I've had all kinds of situations. But what I would say, we talk about my story a little bit. What I would say for your audience in terms of a takeaway is very simple, very similar to what you just said, being stubborn, which is you got to stick with it. You know what I mean? And here's what I tell people: make adjustments. Figure out what it is that's not working or is working, and then make some adjustments. Look at what you're getting, whether it's speaking or business or networking or referrals or anything. If I'm not getting enough referrals, and here's the second point, try to figure out what you need to do more of.
Yeah,
You know
agreed.
what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
right? Stop freaking complaining about what everybody else needs to be doing. I apologize for the language. Stop complaining about what everybody else needs to do and start looking at what you need to be doing. And when one of the things I like to say is if you want to get more, you need to be more first, man. And that is not my rules. These are not my rules. So, a little bit of a longer story, but that's kind of how I went up in the ranks. And no, the books did not write themselves. No, the clients did not get into themselves. And yes, I've worked a part-time job. Like that's just how it goes.
Yeah, no, I think this is all very, very valuable. I guess the question I would have, a follow-up question, what
Sure.
was that point where you sort of realized, yeah, and I'll answer the question and let you answer as well.
Okay.
What was
Okay.
that point where you realized, oh, you know, this free stuff? Because when I went to this Ohio Business
Yeah.
Brokers Association, it didn't
Yeah.
happen right
Yeah.
away. It was
Right.
kind of later on where I was like, oh, wow, that really had impact. But I
Right.
remember
Right.
when I first started owning and operating AmSpirit Business Connections, I'm
Right.
like, hey, let me come into your company and talk about my business. And I would come in, I
Right.
would talk about my business, and people were playing on their phones, they're going to the
Right.
bathroom, they're dozing
Right.
off,
Right.
and then it was going nowhere, right?
Right.
Nobody
Right.
cared. And
Right.
then somebody said, you really talk when you're out at the chapters, you really say some neat things. Would you mind coming talking to my sales staff about these neat
Right.
things? And
Right.
so I did, figuring, okay, yeah, another talk, whatever. But I
Right.
would preface it by, here's who I am, this is what I do, and hey, here are
Right.
3 tips for you.
Right.
And they would be totally glued to what I had to say. And then they would come up afterwards, and it was like, oh my gosh, I was
Right.
wasting time before.
That's right. That's right. I would say, I'm a spiritual person. I would call it the road to Damascus. My road to Damascus point was, I remember it. It was Alpharetta Rotary Club. Okay. So I remember I said I lived in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta
Yep.
for like 17 years. I've been out here in North Carolina for 7, maybe 8 actually, but whatever. And I remember it was Alpharetta, Georgia. Which is in the northern Georgia, northern Atlanta. It was the Alpharetta Rotary Club. We were at a restaurant called the Rainwater Cafe. Oh, not the Rainwater Cafe, Rainwater Restaurant, not the Rainwater Cafe, Rainwater
Okay.
Restaurant. And I did a presentation. And just for whatever reason, I was playing well that day. Okay. And wound up. Now, this is before there was coaching. So a lot of people listening are like, before coaching? That's like, talking about before like electricity. Okay.
Yeah.
There was a world in business where there weren't coaches.
Yeah.
I was in that for a little bit. Okay. In the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And what happened was I wasn't selling or having a coaching conversation with people. It just wasn't what you were having. I sold $400 worth of books and stuff like that. Now, at the time, first of all, if you're going to give me $400, I'll take it right now. So if anybody wants to send me $400, I'll email me and I'll send them my routing number. But $400 then, I couldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
it was like I couldn't believe it. I remember leaving the restaurant, getting into the car. I couldn't believe it. That's when to me, you asked when it dawned. That's when it was. It was that was probably 2000, maybe 2002, maybe 2003. I don't know exactly when. I started in 01. You know what? If I were guessing, don't hold me to this. I would say 2003, maybe 2004.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was early. And I was like, oh my goodness. Now, there was a lot to learn for me from that to move forward. But when I knew that it was the right idea, and I also remember when I was down at Georgia Tech, I was doing a conference down there, sold another like $400 or $500 worth of stuff, which was like all the money in the world. You know what I mean? At that time, and that's when I knew we were onto something.
Yeah. No, it's funny how we find these lessons, or these lessons find us.
Yeah,
You weren't really
yeah,
looking for the lesson; it just kind of
yeah,
happened. And
yeah.
but your frame is probably correct, because there really wasn't a lot of coaching.
No,
Coaching really became prevalent shortly after that. I mean, there were high end people in Wall Street who were always getting coached, and when they
okay,
started letting people go from the military, hey, we're going to be
okay. Good point.
downsizing the military. We need to
Good
help
point.
these people.
Good
That,
point.
hey, there's this notion of coaching out here, and that's when it
That's a
really
good point.
started to explode.
That's a
Um,
really good point.
yeah, and Very interesting. Very interesting how how it came about, and similar story. I've been out, and so a friend of mine, Becky Tilka, she's passed away a few years ago. Bless her heart. She would, hey, can you come talk to, she worked an outplacement, Lee Heck Harrison. I got
I
50.
remember Lee Heck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still around. Lee Heck
Yeah.
Harrison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 2008, 2009. People
Right.
are
Right.
don't have
Recession.
jobs. Yeah.
Right.
Can you come in and talk to all these people? I don't have a budget. It's like, oh, that's okay. Yeah. Can I bring my books? Oh, sure. You know, um, and I remember telling the people, it's like, you can get this online for $20, but I'm here. Amazon's not getting their cut, so I'll sell it to you for 10.
Right. That's
You know,
exactly right.
and
That's
having
exactly
people lined up, it's like, oh my gosh, I figured I would sell 2 or 3.
No, no. You sold, I'm sure you sold a bunch. And the other thing too is like the idea of you going out, back to your point about the speaking and going out and doing that, the Lee Heck Harrison, because you were, I mean, not that you need me to tell you this, but it's because you were connecting with these people.
Yeah.
You were meeting them where they're at. And what I tell people, for your audience or whatever listening, you want to be successful in terms of speaking and generating, paying clients from a free talk. You just have to do 2 things. You have to be educating and you have to be entertaining.
Yeah.
If you can have a value add, some content, obviously that's the educating, but there needs to be an element of entertainment. And people think, oh, well, I'm not a funny person. I'm not. Okay, I didn't say you had to be David Copperfield.
Right.
I just said that there has to be some type of like my game is I like to tell jokes. I like to laugh. I like to have a little interaction. That's my game. Okay, my brother's game is similar to that, except he goes in with the presentation with set jokes. I don't. I do more of like a let's see what happens. I have some that I use every once in a while, the same ones, but like, I have a few. So it's the idea of if you're entertaining and you're educating them, people are going, and now this last one is more recently, you have to have a clear call to action.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, and here, let me make another point, if you don't mind, just real quick, that call to action can be like on a virtual, the call to action might be schedule a 30-minute call with me. Or the call to action might be, I'm going to follow up with a few people here from this call. Like one of the things I tell, we've got if you don't mind me, I'm just going to mention it real quick. We have a speakers mastermind. We have a speakers mastermind group that we meet on a monthly basis. And one of the things that I tell that group is that when you're doing when you're doing a virtual presentation, what you do, here's a little trick I learned just like a few months ago. What you do is you tell people, listen, you know what? I want to treat this like a networking event, and I want to treat this as an opportunity for us to engage and to be able to connect after the event. Here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. I'm going to ask you to put your contact information into the chat. Put your name, number if you want, email, calendar link, whatever, because I'm going to ask you to do it in the next 30 seconds. Otherwise, it's going to go all the way through. It's going to be calling constantly, and it's going to be a little bit of a distraction for me. And you ask them to do that. And then what you do is you ask them to give you a self-identifying matrix. So for me, I might say, and if you're a speaker, type a Y in. You might say, like with your networking and stuff like that, if you're a part of a network, if you're looking for a networking group, or if networking is a part of your business plan, put a Y. I'm just making that up.
Right.
And what you get at the end, and they will do it, people will do it. And then what happens is you save the chat, obviously. So then what you're doing is after the presentation, you're messaging the people, guess what? With the whys. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Brian Hilliard. I know you were at my event the other day on how to generate more paying clients from free talks. I just want to thank you so much for coming out. I want to see if you want to do a little one-to-one. I can share with you a little bit about what we're all about. I can give you some best practices. You can share with me where you are in your journey.
I like that. No, I like that. Yeah.
I got a client from that just today. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No.
I got a client from that today. Yeah. I got a client from doing that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I cut you off. I think that's powerful because I do free talks and people don't know how to approach you. Right.
Right.
And so you need to give them permission to,
That's exactly what you do is you just say, listen, I might contact you. You say this.
Yeah.
What I'd like is you guys to contact each other. I might contact you. If you want to contact me, That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, let's get it all out right here. And then I don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about it. The chat goes away. Just get it all, you go to breakout rooms,
Yeah.
some other stuff. Let's have it all here. We'll put it in the chat. I'm going to give you a recommendation. This is you talking to them. I'm going to give you a recommendation. Make sure you save the chat. You'll have everybody's information on there. There might be somebody you want to meet.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Well, that segues into just share a little bit about your business. You talked about this mastermind,
Oh, yes.
and I know you have masterminds, you do one-on-ones types of things. Please let me
Yeah,
know.
it's pretty straightforward. So the whole point for me is showing individuals how to generate more revenue from their public speaking activities, whether that's getting paid to speak or generating paying clients from their free talks. I've had over 20 years of experience. We put it into a framework so they can do that without being pushy or salesy. That's the top line. How we're able to do that is, yes, we have a speakers mastermind group, an education and mastermind group. We meet monthly. All right. And it's a 90-minute meeting. People can come, they can take a look at it. I love it. We had one just the other day, actually. And then also, yes, I do some one-on-one work with people and things like that. Where they can find me, if I can throw out my website, if that's okay, is morepaidSpeakingGigs.com. Okay, morepaidSpeakingGigs.com. You can find me there. You can message me. My name is Brian Hilliard, obviously, and there's information in terms of the mastermind there if you want. Oh, and the other thing, because I'll forget, is if anybody wants to attend as my guest, they can. Just register, send me a note. No one's charging you for anything. Back to the point, top line.
Right.
You give, then you get.
Yep. I will put morepaidSpeakingGigs.com. I will get that in the show notes.
Awesome.
This was great. This is inspiring. I really appreciate your time today.
Oh man, this is great. I appreciate you. This was awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.